Hey everyone, Ryan here at etrailer. Today we're going to be showing you how to install and checking out the etrailer.com axle. And this particular one is going to come included with the hubs, with idler hubs. But you can get these as just a bare axle or even a kit that has the axle and drum brakes. This will make a great direct replacement or even an upgrade in some cases for the trailers out there. And probably the most important part when figuring out what axle is going to work for you is taking a couple of measurements and checking a few things first, which we'll get to in a moment. I'll show you a couple things that you can look for, but why don't we actually see what this looks like installed on our trailer first. This axle is going to work with a lot of different applications. Boat trailers like we have it on here today, utility trailers, enclosed trailers, a lot of different things. It's a pretty common weight capacity. It's a 3,500 pound. That's what it's rated for. And something that you may notice too, it might be a little hard to tell, but the axle actually has a slight bend in it. And it's supposed to be like that. That's how the axle's designed, because what happens is it's going to help with the camber, right? Have a zero camber, and that'll help keep your tires wearing properly and extend the life of them. Since the axle that we put in here today is the kit that comes included with the hubs, we'll make sure that these are going to work with your current wheel and tire combination. So these will be fine for those wheels that are 13 to 15 inches, and they have a 5 by 4.5 bolt pattern, meaning you have 5 studs, and to figure out if it's 4.5, what yours is, it's a really common size, the vast majority of them out there, but you can take your wheel, and if you just pick a bolt hole, say this one here, from the center of it, measure to the center between the 2 other bolt holes on the opposite side. If it's 4.5, then you know that your tire and wheel combination can go on the hub, not run into any issues there. The axle does have easy lube spindles, meaning you can pop this rubber cap out and get to a grease fitting, so you can pump grease into there. And now why don't we go ahead and cover some of those measurements that we talked about earlier to help you figure out if this will work with your application. Something that's pretty convenient is inside of the axle tube, there's already a wire ran from side to side. So in the future, if you do ever want to put electric brakes on your trailer, you'll have that already ran for you. So that's pretty nice. Makes it a little bit easier if that's something that you end up doing. And something I always recommend too, whenever you're changing out your axle, is to get a new U-bolt kit like we have here today. It's just to make sure that everything is fresh and will work properly for miles to come. Other than that, not really a whole lot to it. Like I said, the most important part is just seeing what your old trailer has and checking everything to make sure that this is going to work. But it's a pretty convenient kit. The fact that you get the axle, you get the hubs, the bearings and everything are already packed, makes installation pretty easy. And today, I don't do a ton of axle work here. Every now and again. Today it went seamless, didn't run into any issues, nothing like that. Usually I'm doing more camper related stuff, but I'm the boat guy, and so this project was given to me. So hopefully the things that I did during the installation can help you out whenever you go to install yours. Now with that said, if this is something that you don't want to mess with, have the time or place to work on it, you can always use our dealer locator network, and that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can do this for you. But if you're going to give it a go, hang around, we'll go ahead and get started on it now. One of the very first things that I like to measure is the spring center. So you have these little perches here, and you can measure from the center of that opening all the way down to the center of the opening on the other side. And with this particular axle, it's going to measure 74 inches. From there, I'd probably make sure that you're going to get the right spindle drop, meaning, here's the axle tube and our spindle drops down. And that measurement, so you go from the center of the axle tube, the center of the spindle, that's 4 inches. And then as far as the axle diameter goes, this particular one is 2 3/8, and really, you know, that can help you out to figure out what U-bolt kit is going to work best. We don't have our hubs installed on this axle yet, but the measurement that you can take at home, if your axle's all set up and everything, if it's under your trailer or whatnot, would be hub face to hub face. So imagine if this hub was installed on here, you'd go from the hub face to the other side and record that measurement. On this particular setup, it's going to be 89 inches. While we have everything apart too, figured we'd take a better look at the hubs that come with the axle. And so it's really convenient, you know, that these are going to be a direct matchup. You don't have to worry about sourcing hubs separately or worried about, you know, the sizes of bearings to use and seals and things like that. And what's really nice is they already come pre-assembled and pre-greased. So it makes the setup extremely straightforward. You don't have to pack bearings and go through all that trouble or try to drive seals in. So that's just going to really help streamline the process and give you some extra confidence knowing that, you know, these parts are designed to work with this axle. To begin your installation, very first thing that you need to do is get your trailer up in the air. Make sure to use all the proper safety equipment while doing so. And you want to get the old axle out of the way, right? Now everyone's setup's going to be a little bit different if you happen to have brakes or things like that, but it's pretty straightforward to get everything apart. As far as what's holding the axle in place, you'll usually have 2 U-bolts on each side. You can remove the nuts from there. And that's really all there is, kind of holding the axle in. Now in some cases, depending how yours was set up, so for example, if your axle was installed underneath the leaf spring pack, not a big deal, right? It just drops down right out of the way. If it was sitting on top of the leaf spring, sometimes what you have to do to actually get it slid out is remove the hub that's on there. That way it can actually pass through there. It's all situational. But with that said too, with everything out of the way, now would be a great time to kind of visually inspect other components. You know, make sure your leaf springs aren't cracked and in good condition or not flattened out. Make sure that your shackles and everything are tight. And in this case, on this trailer, everything looks really good. I did come in with a little spray paint too, just kind of freshen everything up. Now you're able to take your axle and slide it into position. And on the leaf spring, you'll see this little dowel, all right? And that's gonna line up with the perch there. So you'll take that and you'll feel it kind of drop into place. Make sure it's dropped in on each side of the trailer. And whatever we do to one side, we're also gonna do to the other side, right? Because we set up the same. And now we can secure it down with our U-bolts. So these are, you can pick these up separately. I definitely recommend using new U-bolts. Those will just drop around each side of the leaf spring there, and you'll take your plate, get those lined up. And then with this particular kit, you're gonna have a split lock washer and a nut. So we'll just get all these started hand tight. You can use a 3/4 inch socket to snug the U-bolts down, and you want to try to run these down evenly. You know, ideally you have about the same amount of threads exposed from each end of the U-bolt. So I like to do, just kind of run it down a few turns at a time on each one. This will just help kind of draw everything up evenly. Now you want to make sure, come back with a torque wrench and torque these down to the manufacturer's values. We can get our hubs installed now, and what I like to do before doing anything, right, is just make sure the spindle's clean, grab a paper towel, some rubbing alcohol or brake cleaner, wipe it, let it dry, just in case there's any potential contaminants on it from shipping or whatever the case may be. And then I just take some of the grease from the hub and put a light coating on the spindle. Just carefully push this on here. Grab your washer. Pop that on. And then the castle nut. And we're just going to run this down as tight as we can by hand. What I like to do now is take our wheel, put it on the hub, and just grab a lug nut or two kind of across from each other. And we'll snug those down. That way, it makes it a little bit easier to seat the hub. And so what you want to do, I have an 1.5 inch socket here, and you want to follow the torque specs, and while you're doing this, you want to be rotating the hub. So it's just a little bit easier to rotate and everything with the wheel on, gives you a little more leverage. So now that we know that this is seated, I suppose you could leave your wheel on, but I'll take it off real quick just so we can see a little bit better. So we want to crack the nut loose, and we want to do this and try not to let the hub actually move. So I broke it loose. All right, so all the tension's off of it. We're just going to rotate it until it's finger tight. And we have everything lined up here. Because there is an opening in the spindle where your cotter pin is going to need to go through. Take your cotter pin, push it through, and then just bend up the edges here. You can take the caps now and get them installed. I like to just take a little bit of grease right around the edge there. Helps it go on a little bit easier. And with this axle having the Easy Lube type spindles with a little grease cert there, we're going to put the caps on that have the plugs there. So with these, main thing is to try to get them going straight. Because if you really, pound on these things, you'll end up denting them up. So you can use a mallet. Try to get them going in even. Sometimes it's tough, especially when everything's brand new. You can always use something like this. They make drivers as well for these. Sometimes it just wants to fight you too. So another method that you can use, trying to get it started straight as possible. Let's get it like that, and then take a block of wood. And that's what we're looking for, for that to be pressed up into each other, no gap there. Popped out that rubber plug, and even though everything's already preloaded with grease, not a bad idea to take the grease gun, put it onto the zert, and just pump a little bit more into there. I reinstalled the little rubber plug in there. Now would be a great time too to check your tire pressures and set them to the appropriate amount. And we'll go ahead, get our wheel back on. take our new lug nuts that come with the hub. We'll get these ran down here. Of course you do all these same things to the other side of the trailer. And of course, once we get it off the jack stands and everything, you want to always be sure to come back and torque all the lug nuts down to the proper specification. But with that said, I think that'll about do it for our look at and our installation of the etrailer.com axle kit.